So there you go. It's all on my shoulders. Welcome everybody to the ANS meeting. What is it?
1220.
1220.
Another 30 meetings and we can make a medal.
12:50.
Okay, 12:50. We have apologies from Barry Towers, Colin and Sandy Pitchfork, Robert Tonner, John Menakos, Les Carlisle, Lindy Hall, Ron Bolden, Joe Detling, Murray Brad.
And Ian
Sizeland.
Southland.
Is there anyone else that we know of? No? Okay.
What about the Nobles and all them off there?
Oh, the Noble guys, well, they didn't make any mention here, but Colin and Sandy Pitchfork did sort of make the effort to tell us that they're not going to come tonight. That's all right. Just as a reminder, we do not have a meeting in June. Yeah, we don't have a meeting here in June because we will be at the conference on that long weekend. I think is the Monday of the long weekend. That's the second Monday, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the 14th. The long weekend's the 14th.
Yeah. So
when we're coming home in the
most of us will be coming home from the conference. So
in the traffic jams.
We won't be having a meeting here. Okay. So please don't go knocking on the door.
There is a possibility, because there's only 18 of us at the conference. The numbers are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, that there may not be too many more conferences. And if there isn't a conference up there, there's nothing to stop us having a conference here on the Monday the 14th. I mean, you know, we'd pay for the hall, and instead of having a nighttime meeting, we'd have a daytime conference meeting.
That conference, well, that might be.
Oh, you could be public holiday, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's a public holiday, so, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be nice.
And nobody comes here on the Monday anyway. I mean, Phyllis always meets on the Tuesday and Saturday here. They're working downstairs, etc. So, you know, there's no reason why we can't come on that day and actually have a conference-style meeting where everyone has their half-an-hour slot. You know, we'd either organise lunch or you bring your own lunch or whatever. Have the day here.
What about
Possibility.
What about Queensland though? How many Queenslanders have put their name down for this conference?
If they want to come to Sydney and join us, they're welcome.
No, but I mean, as it is, you got many?
But this time,
Yeah,
half and half.
half and half.
Yeah, so, you know, 18 is probably 9 of...
John Pern managing to be able to come?
Who?
John Pern?
Oh, yeah, John Pern is there.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay.
John's... The two Johns, John Pern and John Veltmeyer, will be doing the chairing.
Okay.
I've already got it, so they're chairing the session.
You're
That
not really talking about
Yeah,
you're not really
something
talking
every
about
day.
cancelling this one and having it here as being in future.
in future, yeah.
Mm.
If there's not enough
Yeah.
to have it in Coffs Harbour,
Yeah.
but there's nothing to stop us actually having it here in the odd year anyway. You know, it's
Well,
every 2 years
It
up
could
there.
be, seeing it's Queensland's time to host it after us, maybe they'll want it in Brisbane. We'll all have to go up there.
I don't know. It's a bit of a drag, unless you fly up.
Oh, well, that's enough.
Let's do it right.
That works.
Well, I'll let us in.
Okay,
Well,
well,
that's it.
that's
That's the
Well, they have the question, yeah.
Have to talk to the Premier about that and get a booking.
well, we have preempted the conference thing at the moment, but what we have here is the conference is on the 12th and 13th of June at the Sanctuary Resort. As Rod mentioned, we have 18 attending the conference and 3 wives for the Saturday night dinner.
It's now 4 wives because Helen's joining Graham.
4, okay. So we'll just change that to 4. Apparently the Sanctuary Resort is looking for a chef.
Yeah,
So-
unfortunately, their chef, who was a lady who worked in the kitchen and what next, she went and stupidly developed a hernia, so she can't work there.
Okay.
And they said they've been advertising for months, can't get anyone.
So it might be KFC for lunch, is it?
Well, there is a McDonald's actually not that far away.
Even
You
worse
know,
still.
as you're coming into Coffs, just before you get to Sanctuary Resort, you go past a McDonald's.
maybe the RSL will give us a room and do that, do something for us.
Well, what I am contemplating, I mean, it's still feasible that they might get a chef between now
In a
and
month.
3 weeks' time. If they do, we don't have a problem. If they don't, I will arrange for them to book the buses. You know how the RSL supply transport, and we'll get 2 buses at 6:30 and on the Friday night and the Saturday night, and head down to the RSL. But when we get there on the Friday night, we'll discuss it with them to see if we can have a sort of area to ourselves on the Saturday night.
Right. Look, if we end up not having the dinner at the resort, the $45 dinner cost will be refunded. So that we then go down to the RSL and we'll pay our own way.
Yeah, pay our own way,
Yeah.
eat what we want.
Yeah. If the Saturday night dinner is cancelled, the Sunday lunch will feature the. Okay, so so you're saying that if we have the Saturday night dinner at the RSL, we're not having the presentation?
Not on the Saturday night.
No,
Well,
Saturday.
it depends on whether we can get a private area where
Okay.
there's not
Room.
everyone else.
Yeah.
If it was like we did on the Sunday last time, where
The kids run around and
it's all over the place. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so then what we'll probably do then is it's Sunday lunchtime. We will feature the presentation of the Tom Handley Cup Best Display Medal and Patrons Quiz. So we'll still have a bit of a presentation at the Sanctuary Resort.
yeah.
Okay.
The current thinking is that if they don't have the chef, we'll have sandwiches for lunch on the Saturday, and I can't see any reason why they can't organise a cold buffet for the Sunday.
Mm.
You know, how much cooking does that take? You go to Coles and you buy the
Bread rolls.
potato salad and everything else, ham, cut up chicken and what next. It's easy,
Yeah.
money for nothing. Anyway,
Is there any input or any questions about what's going to happen at the conference in 3 weeks' time? No, nothing. Okay.
I still need a talk from you.
Ah, yeah.
He's working on it.
Have you slotted me in at a certain time?
Not yet, I slotted only the people who gave me a talk. So you're.
I will be talking.
You will?
on the topic, yeah.
Well, Icelandic banknotes or something.
No. We've already spoken about that. Okay. So yeah, I'll be having a talk.
Having a talk. Okay, I've got a spot for you.
Thank you. See what happens when you're president? Rod looks after you
You
really
can't
well.
hide.
Everyone else is already slotted. John,
But I have the privilege of not having to do anything because he does it all for me anyway.
yeah, but guess what? You're perhaps going to be the second last speaker or something.
I won't be asleep on that.
All right, let's move on. We have a new editor, Judy Blackman. Now, for those that don't know, Judy Blackman resides in Canada. She has had a fair bit of experience as an editor with other coin societies, coin clubs over in Canada.
And as we all know, she's very, very thorough.
Yeah, she's quite good. And so anyway, she's put her hand up to be our editor for a period of time. So we gladly...
Yeah, I did tell her that she's got the role for life. And she says, well, I'll do it while my health and mental and physical health, are okay.
All right.
Okay.
So we've sort of welcomed Judy into that role, and she has completed the first 2020 journal with information about the ANS and some of the articles from the 2020 conference and items shown at meetings. Rod is currently getting quotes from printers for the 52-page journal in colour and on glossy paper in A5 size.
Did you
Yeah.
get the...
Yes.
The one?
Now, the journal, the report, or it would be the report, wouldn't it?
Well, put it this way, because they're going to be 52 pages, we want them colour, gloss, like a journal,
Mm.
with a nice hard cover, you know, not there. So they look more like a journal rather than just a photocopied
Yeah,
report.
but like, as I spoke to a printer today, and he was saying with 48 pages, you don't have very much of a spine,
Yeah.
right?
They can organise
So,
a flat spine. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what you're after, having
Yeah.
the flat spine, like the
Like a thicker journal.
biennial conference. Yeah. Okay. I'll have to talk to him about that. All right. So yeah, so we're doing that. It is hoped to have 170 copies printed and ready for dispatch at the end of June. Well, have you got the PDF file from Judy already?
Yeah, I sent it to everyone. You should have got a copy.
Okay.
Doesn't read his emails. That's the problem.
You're too busy.
Do read emails. Okay. So yeah, that's what will happen. Yeah, we're going to print it, and we're going to have a hard copy. Back, and we'll try and get back to normal.
Because Judy can do 52 pages on the PDF, and it's quite easy that with the PDF, we just give the whole PDF to the printers, and they do everything from that. So, really good. No work for us, it's all work for them.
Mm.
And 52 pages. I've got a couple of pretty good quotes, and John's trying to get an even better one, so we'll see.
Yeah. My quote came in at about $50 cheaper than the one you sent me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The quote I sent you had a additional fee on it, which was the
Yeah,
$220.
I'll
So
cross that
basically, if you scrub that out, it's $945 or so,
Mm.
plus
off.
GST,
Yeah.
which works out at $6
Mm.
a journal, which is very good. So yeah, if you can get $50 less, it's even better.
Yeah, he quoted me $890 plus GST. So
Yeah.
$50.
Good.
So he's happy to do it, and he was even sort of saying that once he get the machine going, he doesn't chop it off at 170. He'll probably give us a few extras anyway. So.
But we're only paying him for 170.
Yeah, well, that's what I said.
If he wants to make 200, that's fine.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll talk about that later. So the 2020 book 2 will concentrate on the other 2020 conference articles, and we hope we'll be ready for mailing by January 2022.
The idea, since Judy's happy to do this, is that we'd have one in July, which is the start of our financial year, so I can mail it all off with the yearly medal and the renewal notice.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I don't
Now,
know.
most people would have renewed anyway because I send the email anyway, so, people are really good nowadays. Most of them just email, go direct online and pay, and, sort of, at the end of the first day after the email's gone out, I've got 10 payments already, so I think, great. But it's nice with the people who aren't on email, you have to give them a renewal form, etc. So, there. And the other one will be in January, because we have our auction in January, and we have our optional medal in January that people can buy. So it works in nicely that everything can fit in together.
To save passage, will you bring some here?
Oh yeah, we have it here, and we try and save as much postage as we can.
Yep.
Because of the weight, it's going to cost us either $2.20 or $3.30 to mail them out locally.
That's pretty good.
But the overseas ones are the killers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell
it's-
them to come in and get it.
yeah. So to go to Europe or America, if it's over 125 grams, it's going to be $13.50,
This is true.
and if it's over 250 grams, it's going to be $18. So yeah, it's money. Luckily, we don't have too many overseas members.
All right then. For those that don't know, the Petersham Fair is on again on the 30th of May this month. That was announced a couple of weeks ago, but then those 2 cases of COVID came about. I don't know whether they've sort of had to change their plan again, but
I don't think so. I think
you know, the way things are going, I think a lot of people are saying, oh well, 2 cases are over there, so let's not worry about it.
Oh, no, he got around a bit, the first bloke.
They will do that.
Yeah, where's the other bloke?
Anyway, so so as far as we know, that the Petersham Fair is still on the 30th of May.
yeah, we haven't been advised otherwise. So.
Yeah. So for those that generally go, we'll get ready to go. Is there any other general business anyone wants to mention? Nope. No general business. Okay, well, we'll move straight into the topic of the night, and the topic is explorers. So we'll start going in. But yeah, we also have you can also have recent acquisitions as well. So as I go around, we can have the theme of explorers, and then plus any acquisitions. Right. So George, do you want to start?
Good evening, gents. In Australian lingo, we have a lot of expressions and cliches. Fair suck of the sap, she'll be right, mate. Fair crack of the whip. The one that I like best is Australia is a lucky country. Just short of 2 centuries, we discovered gold in Australia, which put us on the map. In the First and Second World War, a lot of young Australians died fighting for mother country in Europe, in the desert, the jungles of New Guinea, and in the Air Force. In the mid-60s and 70s, we lived on the ship's back, which put the sheep farmer gave him respect and made millionaires, some of them, and it helped our budget. Just lately, we've been exporting iron ore and other metals, precious metals, dairy products, and wine, of course, which helps the economy. From the numismatic point of view, I classify this country as a lucky one because of our 2 mint houses we have. The Royal Australian Mint and the Perth Mint. Probably the best mint houses in the world. Some of the coins produced are an exceptionally good example of detail, beauty, artistry, and the finished product in sets looks tremendous. An American company, Franklin Mint, in the 60s and 70s produced a lot of coins for some faraway countries like Virgin Islands, Cayman Island, Trinidad and Tobago, etc. They were nice, big coins, but they just lack the beauty that we have today on our Australian coins. The thing that came out in 1988 was the masterpieces of Australian coins every year. We had the colonial Australia, national identity, opening of a continent, a commemorative set, century issues, century of monarchs. We had the Royal Ladies, a beautiful set of very large, big silver coins. In 1993, we produced the masterpieces in silver of explorers. I have a set, but it was skin wrapped, and I didn't want to break it open, so I brought the next year, 1994, which is also set number 2 of Australian explorers. The 1993, which I didn't bring, was Abel Tasman, Matthew Flinders, Gregory Blaxland, William Lawson, William Charles Wentworth, and some chap called James Cook, Captain Cook, who they did a lot of voyaging and discovering, and was killed for it. It wasn't the French, it wasn't Indians or Maoris. Actually, it was Kauai tribesmen in Hawaii who finished him off. And he only appears on our 50-cent piece in 1970, unfortunately. That 1994 set that I have here, we have John MacDonald Stewart, Douglas Mawson, Charles Stewart, Ludwig Leichhardt, and St. John Forrest. These coins are 5 of them, minted in sterling silver. Um, 38.9 millimeter
George,
in diameter,
George,
George,
George!
The camera.
put him on the camera.
sterling silver, and the weight is 35.79 grams each. That's over 144 grams for the 5 coins. It's a frosted proof. If you can just pull one of the coins, show one of the reverse of the obverse of one of the coins, Rod, it'll, it's beautiful craftsmanship and artistry. You won't see anything like it, not from any other British mints. And they all have a reeded edge on them, and the thickness is 3.5 millimeters in thickness. Like I said, the weight is 35.79, which is over an ounce of pure silver. We have a suburb named after him in Sydney, off Parramatta Road near Annandale. beautiful sets, all of those masterpieces. Later on, we had the Federation, the Voyage into History, and 20 years of $1 coins, and 20th century art. A very, very nice lot. I also have here the Swan Hill colony, founded in 1829 in Western Australia. Also a very nice piece. You've probably seen this one before.
Swan River.
Inside the box there on the top is a history of each and every one of those explorers, his achievements and everything else. That's it.
Matthew, did you bring it in?
No, I forgot it actually.
Peter?
I didn't have it ready. I forgot.
Maurice? Tony?
No, it's a big one.
No Explorer badges, no pins?
Well, there were some, I just didn't have time to go and find them.
Yeah, I've got it all ready and I left it on the phone on the bookcase.
Give us some of that.
I'll have to show them next one. Next one.
Did you bring
Not
any?
quite as brilliant as George has done, but a bit hard to find anything at all in the explorers field. I'd say, you know, we're all of our age. I think we all know of all of our Australian explorers and what have you. The only one I've got for Bass and Flinders is the 50-cent coin for it shows both Bass and Flinders, who did the explored the east coast of Australia, total of 18,000 kilometres, which is quite a feat. You know, the little ship that they had, if you could even call it a ship, it was that small, but they certainly got around.
Tom Thurman.
That was in 1803. George Bass disappeared after he sailed in the Pacific Ocean with a cargo he wanted to sell in South America. Some people believe he was captured by the Spanish and forced to work in mines in Peru, which is quite feasible. So there's a little bit there, but I think
We've got a lot of Bass and Flinders stuff down at Wollongong. There's quite a lot of places named after. There's a suburb called Flinders. There's even a
map of their voyages and whatever you there.
there is named after him down there.
And Matthew Flinders actually got himself on our old 10 shilling note. Again, as George was like with our coinage and what have you, I think our notes are pretty good too. And we have Hume and Sturt on the £1 note. Now they were pretty much about around the same time, but Hume was actually born at Seven Hills in 1797, so should have been pretty remote out there in those days.
Hamilton and Hume, isn't it?
And
Charles
so
Sturt.
Seven Hills near Parramatta, a settlement close to and now a suburb of Sydney, which it has been for some time.
They've named a highway after him.
Yeah.
That's
So,
right, there is. But didn't also have a watermark of Cook and a lot of banknotes in Australia too?
I haven't seen one at all myself that I can recall.
No, the Cook watermark was on the first polymer,
Oh, first polymer, okay.
polymer $20. Not $20, $10.
Right, what's it?
Charles Sturt, South Australia. Sturt Desert P.
That's right.
Hamilton Town.
Hamilton Hume.
And there was Hovell too, but I couldn't find anything on him at all. My limited research. Next one we've got is Sir John Franklin. He's on the £5 note. He was born in Lincolnshire in 1786, the ninth of 12 children. So Mum and Dad, I don't know if they weren't out tilling the fields too much. But,
Always
and he was actually
Tasmania, wasn't it?
he's a British Royal Navy officer and Arctic explorer. After serving in wars against the Napoleonic France and the United States, he led 2 expeditions into the Canadian Arctic in 1819 and 1825 and served as Lieutenant Governor of Van Diemen's Land from 1839 to 1843. During his 3rd and final expedition to force the Northwest Passage in 1845, Franklin's ships became icebound off King William Island in what is now Nunavut, where he died in 1847. The icebound ships were abandoned 10 months later and the entire crew died from causes such as starvation, hypothermia and scurvy.
They named a river after him in Tasmania,
Yeah,
and they tried to dam it.
That's very conditional.
Oh, back
There we go.
There it is.
Come out of hiding. Then we have Sir Douglas Mawson, OBE, FRS, FAA and whatever they all mean. He was an Australian geologist, Antarctic explorer and academic, along with Roald Amundsen, Robert Falcon Scott and Sir Ernest Shackleton. He was a key expedition leader during the heroic age of Antarctic exploration. And so he was our Antarctic explorer. And while I have the floor, I'll do the recent acquisitions. David, have you been getting rid of some more of your free tokens and what have you?
Not really.
Yeah, so I just picked these up the other day at an auction, and there's a few there, similar to the ones that you had. There's a couple of others, I think. Well, you've probably still got them all anyhow. There's quite a variety, but I just thought, that'd be something interesting for a change. And starting off with the probably one of the largest ones. I've got it's Space AM. And I've got no idea what the heck it's supposed to be commemorating, 'cause that's all it says. It gives the years 77 and 78, so I've got no idea what the heck it means or what it's celebrating. Comic characters type of thing on it. But, anybody's guess? I'd say some radio thing, I'd say, but nothing about any particular station or anything like that.
Tunes Quad.
Monster.
That's 3 characters.
Toy Stars.
On the other side of
This next one might interest John. You got the Hacienda Hotel, Casino and Camperland at Las Vegas. That's good for one free game. Some of them are in actually beautiful condition, like they look like straight out cement sort of thing. Next one is the centenary of the Ashes, cricket Ashes that is, from 1982. Next one's a Jubilee of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, put up by our old friend Mr. Roberts. Next one. Next one's the to commemorate the coronation of King George V and Queen Mary, presented by the citizens of Forbes and District to the children of the district.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's not King George. Oh, 1937, okay.
Mm. Now we've got, you almost say a pair. We've got the commemoration of the incorporation of the Shoalhaven City Council in '79 and the 100 years strong of community, local community of Nowra, of the Nowra Town Band centenary, and also celebrating the old and new bridges.
No.
They're both about the same time, but they're obviously put out for separate purposes sort of thing. So you'd have some of them, wouldn't you, John?
No, I don't have them.
Here's your opportunity to empty your wallet.
I've really taken my money.
Okay, there's the
You're getting quick.
50th anniversary of Parliament House, another one by Roberts. Now, as George mentioned before, Captain Cook, we've got one here from the Council of the Shire of Sutherland, presented on the bicentenary of Captain Cook's landing, 1770, 1790. 1970, sorry.
Oh. It is not.
Another one you haven't got?
No, but then
Oh, got him. Well, this one's a bit unusual. I've got, again, I only picked these up the other day, so I haven't really done any research into them, but there's one here from the Katoomba to Mittagong Natai River Track, the inaugural walk in 1988 or 1989. It shows the route, what have you there?
That's a long way.
Yeah.
Bicentenary, 88.
Lists of places, you know, the spots where it passes through, etc.
Please.
On the other side, it's
Derry. Natai track.
never heard of it myself.
Natai.
Oh, yeah.
Derry, Mittagong, Katoomba. Okay.
Don't know if I'd want to walk that far myself, that's for sure.
That's an awful long walk.
Now this one goes back a bit. This is the World Expo 1974 in Spokane in Washington. Again, I like I'd say it's brass or some.
It's a token box, man.
Yeah.
Like it's a $1. So.
This one's just a kid's thing. It's a $1 toy money made in Hong Kong. Mm.
Got Donald Trump on it.
Hey, now that's not nice. Then we have a Newcastle and Suburban Cooperative Society Limited 1 pint of bottled milk.
Well, they get
Any knowledge of that one at all?
Millers. Okay.
I know
Produced by Millers.
The common thing in aluminium, is it aluminium? isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is aluminium, yeah.
These are the days when milks came in bottled with aluminium foil tops and all that.
Then we have one about the size of 5 cent is from E. Way Draper of Pitt Street, Sydney, and he reckons he's the cheapest draper in Sydney. But no idea of when it might have been. There's no date or anything on it. So. I suppose there's plenty of them around. Then we have one of John Danks and Sons, or some of you might remember them as old merchants there. It's a coronation medal for the 1911 coronation of George V and Mary. Now they were noted for plumbing, gas fitters materials, irrigation plans and engineers brasswork. And it's quite a good mix here, but just very quickly, if I can. Just bear with me for a second. None of I really should show these two, but I will. Particularly silver tiles. When Parramatta was first and Manly was second.
Oh, really?
Sorry about that.
Dead.
That's my collection.
Yeah, come on. Not the seagulls, one, no.
No, it's
David,
83.
knock that fire then tomorrow.
Where we going, it might happen again this year.
Might. Print book, so I can remind myself what's all about.
Hit their straps a bit at the moment. They're not going to the wire yesterday.
Yeah, sure.
Close to home.
How's that? Is that
No, I don't.
available? Oh, yeah.
And
I thought I'd talk about, seeing I had some coins of a period from Portugal, talk about the Portuguese explorations down the coast of Africa and finally to India. One of the greatest journeys of the world, actually, ever.
Vasco da Gama.
I think in some ways it beats Columbus, and by and large it predates Columbus. The Kingdom of Portugal was not a particularly well-off one, stuck on the end of Europe, facing the Atlantic Ocean, where it still remains, of course. And the Portuguese were desperate to get some sort of economic leg up over the rich countries that surrounded it. And they put a lot of effort, to give them credit, where they lost a lot of ships, a lot of men, in trying to find a way to get to India, to bypass the absolute monopoly that the Muslims had in controlling the spice trade. And as we all know, and history tells us, they managed to do it. But it wasn't without effort, and a lot of loss of men and ships in doing it. And every little journey that they made down that coast, they sort of stacked up the knowledge about the winds and the tides and so on, and all of which were locked away as state secrets, never to be revealed on pain of death to any foreigner. And they eventually found out the whole wind system of the South Atlantic and the Indian Oceans to enable them to navigate safely. But as I say, a lot of discovery went into it and experimentation. The period I'm talking about, and I really want to focus on one particular dynasty of the Portuguese kings, that is the House of Aviz. It's because there was a dynastical change when the Portuguese decided they didn't want to live under a Spaniard who'd married the heir to the Portuguese throne, so they asked an illegitimate brother of the king to be king, and he didn't have to fight much for it, but he was Grand Master of the Knights of Aviz, and they, interestingly, in Portugal, I don't know if you know much about the Templars and how they were ruthlessly suppressed in Europe, mainly because of the French king and his sort of under the thumb Pope. But they were protected in Portugal by the Portuguese king, and they had to change their name from Templars, but eventually the Knights of Aviz was the group, and this king was named John, was the Grand Master, and he became King of Portugal. That started it. One thing I did mean to do, though, just before we go much further, I'm not a native Portuguese speaker, and I probably pronounce some things wrong, but some things I did want to let you know about. If I could just borrow your pen, John, for a minute. I'll write down a name here. And you'll all recognise it as a city in Brazil. You want to just put that on the screen?
Sao Paulo.
And the question is, how do you pronounce it?
Sao Paulo.
Paulo.
Okay. Wrong. Wrong.
Fair enough.
The A and the O, with the tilde on top of the A, changes the pronunciation completely from what you might expect compared to the Arnott's biscuit, okay? It's the A tilde says there's a nasal sound somewhere in there. So they in fact drop the O and cross out the O and put an N there. And that is actually San Paulo, which means, you know, St. Paul. Okay, and whenever you see that A tilde O, you have to say it in your mind as An. So the name of the king is not J-O, but he's J-O, the A tilde O, which is John, really.
John.
And I'll anglicise it to John to do it. But that's a complete rule of Portuguese pronunciation. They often drop the last vowel of a word, it doesn't pronounce, and when it's got the tilde, there's an N. So we are debatable whether it should be an N or an M, but normally and certainly when it's a saint, if the English word is saint with the N, then the Portuguese word will definitely be saint. So, but that's you take nothing away from this talk, but that's a good thing. So he was the first king that sort of started it, and interestingly, John, the Portuguese king, about 1390 he came to the throne, and he married an English woman. He married, in fact, the granddaughter of Edward III, whose father was John of Lancaster. So she was actually sister to Henry IV and an auntie to Henry V of England, Victor of Agincourt. But she went and married the Portuguese king, and she bore him at least 6 children who lived beyond babyhood, 5 boys and a girl. And one of those boys, the third one, was Henry, who became famous for being Henry the Navigator. And he was very, very keen on learning all about navigation, the science of geography and so on, and he sponsored a lot of trips down the coast. And during that period, they discovered the Azores, and Madeira, which are all Portuguese territories today, and self-governing Portuguese territories, and eventually they got down a bit further and found the Cape Verde Islands too, which belong. They'd already known about the Canaries. That's a Spanish, was Spanish territory, but apart from that, all those other islands in the Mediterranean, in the Atlantic, became Portuguese colonies. Anyway, it took a while. Yes, one thing I did want to say too is that in 1415, the Portuguese, in a little bit of desperation, conquered the Moroccan town of Ceuta. And knows where Ceuta is? Just opposite the Straits of opposite Gibraltar, pretty much. That was taken by the Spanish eventually in 100 years or later time. But in 1415, magic date, because 1415 was the date of Henry V's Battle of Agincourt, his cousins, the five boys, all participated in this capture of Ceuta. And the riches there, because it was the main trading post of the Muslims into Europe, were just phenomenal. And that financed a lot of their exploration. So to cut a long story short, they soon discovered the Gulf of Guinea. And they thought, whoopee, we were going east now. They expected to go right along the Gulf of Guinea and hit India. And all of a sudden they had to turn south again. They tried to go up the rivers. In about 1450 or something, there's a famous man called John Kahn, spelt that way, with Kahn, I'm pronouncing it, who discovered the mouth of the Congo. And they went right up the Congo thinking, right, this has got to lead to the Nile somehow or other. They were somewhat disappointed when they come to these great big waterfalls and they couldn't go any further. So that was a bit of a setback for everybody. And anyway, they went further down. And finally, in 1488, this man, Bartholomew Diaz, spelled D-I-A-Z, a great navigator, sailor, and a risk taker, he eventually took a small fleet of a couple of what they called caravels, small Portuguese sailing boats, not particularly big, and he got about as far as Namibia. And he couldn't move because the coast was rugged and the winds would be blowing you on the shore all the time. And he thought, I'll blow this. And he just took a complete leap into the dark and sailed way out to sea. Nobody had ever been there before. He sailed almost to the latitude of Melbourne in south. And of course, having left in the Portuguese summer, it's now the southern hemisphere winter, and it was freezing. And he said, all right, boys, let's grab these winds while they're blowing east. And he did. And he said, at some point, I just sort of said, well, now's the time to go north again. And he went north. And lo and behold, he ended up in the Madagascar Channel, between Africa proper and Madagascar. And that was brilliant. They soon realised that they were on the right side of Africa, where they wanted to be. That's as far as he could go. And one of his big recommendations when he got back is don't use caravels. They're too small and they don't last the distance. You've got to have something bigger. But so he came back, and as he came back along the coast, it was easier to come back than to go east, go west. He discovered the Cape of Good Hope. That's not on the outward journey, but on his backward journey going home. And that was a brilliant thing. And anyway, when he got home, he was celebrated, not as much as perhaps he deserved, but he was given in charge of preparing the next journey, where they did make big ships. And it took about 10 years to get to this point. And in 1498, and this was after Columbus obviously had reported and discovered his discoveries, they elected a guy called Vasco da Gama to take this, and his brother who take the two big ships and a caravel and a supply ship. And he was briefed on all the winds and how to sail. Vasco da Gama was a bit not as brave as Diaz. He didn't sail further south or enough east. So when he came back the route, he was still on the wrong side of the Cape of Good Hope, and he struggled to get round it against the winds. But eventually he did, and then he waited for the right winds, and eventually just sailed straight across the Indian Ocean and north. Of course, he'd gone a long way north, back and to got the Malabar coast of India. And that was one of the greatest journeys and discoveries ever known. And the Venetians, when they got back after this and saw the price at which they could buy spice for and sell it for, they realised that was the end of Venice's trading monopoly and power. Because they used to buy it from all the overland, caravans used to come up from the coast of Arabia, and that was all completely bypassed by the Portuguese discoveries. Anyway, so look, I'll just show you a few of the coins of the time.
Did he discover or Goa?
Later on, Goa was not immediately. Goa was, the Portuguese constructed Goa. That's a Portuguese city. They discovered that, but that was another journey, not Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama led 2 trips. I won't go into his relationship with the Muslims too much, but the Portuguese hated them, and they weren't going to queue up at the dock taking their turn waiting for Muslim ships. No, they just got out their cannon and sunk them. So that's the sort of guy he was. So it wasn't a particularly kind thing he did. So we're talking about a reign of four kings. The first one, I'll just show you some of the coins. So none of them, of course, celebrate the particular explorers as such. They're just standard issue of late medieval and Renaissance Portugal. Just sort of, you know what a Portuguese coin, you'd recognise a Portuguese coin, I'm sure, because the 5 shields, which was actually on that book, here we are. The 5 Moorish shields, made in terms of shape of a cross, that's the emblem of Portugal. And this particular one, this is the first king I talked, John, who married the English queen Philippa, named after her grandmother. IHNS, Johannes in Latin, and over the side you'll see the 5 shields, Moorish shields of Portugal. That's called a real of 10 soldos. And another one here, what a real branco, if I can just find a one. They're bill and they're not good silver. The Portuguese in these days didn't have a lot of money and they didn't want to invest a lot in silver. And any silver and gold coins of this era are way beyond my pocket and ability to finance. So Portuguese series consists of, yeah, maybe, is that all right, the shot like that? Portuguese coinage consists of some which are relatively common, some which are medium scarce, and many which are prohibitively rare. And so here we are, the real branco, the Y, like an I, a Greek I, that is for John, Johannes, and the L because that's Lisbon Mint in Lisbon. The 2 main mints were Lisbon and Porto, coastal cities of thing. And once again the 5 shields. There's probably enough of John. His successor was his son Edward Duarte, they called it in Portugal, but Edward after the King of England. That was his grandfather, so he's named after his grandfather. He only lived for a few years, and I've got a here we are. I've just got what they call a real preto. Preto is Portuguese for black, so ouro preto, black gold. That's what they call their iron ore. But here's a coin of Edward. He only ruled for 3 years, but his brother outlived him. Well, as his 3rd brother, which was Henry the Navigator, outlived him. Right, he didn't die till much later. So Edward's successor, Alfonso the African, his name is Alfonso V. He allowed his uncle to carry on and do, organise all the exploring and something. So I'll just go on to the next generation and show you a cruzado. Cruzado is one of the most famous coins of Portugal. I've got 2 of them. I'm lucky to have that many. And the one I've got here, the first one, is of the next generation, Alfonso V. Yeah, I'll probably leave it in there. It's better. It'll be all right. So both sides are nice. And this is a gold coin of focus is a gold coin of of a weight of 3.5 grams, which everyone will recognise as the standard weight of European ducats and also florins. So it was very acceptable trade coin around the world. And oh, that's me. I've got my glasses on. That's why it's out of focus. Right. Yeah. Could I think maybe if you could show the other side. It's probably something to point out. Upside, put it the right way up so you can see. That's right, here we are. Let me see if I can. Okay, no, it could be the other side. This says Cruzados Alphonsus Quintus, or Quinti. Yes, just back again to the other side. Let's see if we can just get the legend. Might be on the other coin I've got. No, well, there's another one here. Let's just move on rather than waste too much time on it to the other Cruzado I've got. There's something significant about the Cruzado that I want to also say. So we can just see the legend of this. This is Alfonso's son, John II. John II was the king of Portugal at the time of Columbus. Columbus actually went to him before he went to Spain. Went to him and said, "Look, will you finance my trip out in the blue?" And gave him all his reasons and everything, and he had advice. He turned him down because he'd already, theirs had already come back and told him all about the Cape, and he knew he was onto something. He didn't need to waste his money on some venture that could lose him all his money, so he declined, and then he had to go to Spain. But yes, this is it. Now, if we can just look at the legend, you can see the cross there on the left there, Iohannes, Johannes, and then it says two, II, R, Rex, P, Portugal, et Algarve, that's the sort of south of Portugal, the Algarve, and then it says D, Guinea, the Dominus of the Lord of Guinea. At this stage, they reckon they owned all of African Guinea and proclaimed themselves as its lords, including, of course, remember this is the old British colony of the Gold Coast, now Ghana. I didn't call it the Gold Coast for nothing. This is probably made from gold from the Guinea coast. So that was that, and finally, John died in 1495. And the Vasco da Gama's trip wasn't until 1498. It was under his nephew, or cousin, I think it was, Emmanuel. And probably the nicest coin I have of Emmanuel is this one, which they'd say that they changed the currency a bit. And this is a coin called a Toston, or Teston, if you like, similar. Many parts of Europe had this. Beautiful coin it has, silver. See, Emmanuel, R-P et al, A, D Guinea. It's the same inscription except as Emmanuel now, a new king. He ruled from 1495 to about, I think it was 1520 or something like that. So the late part of Henry VII's reign and the early part of Henry VIII's reign in England. And it was under him that most of the eastern world was explored. A lovely, hoc signo, by this sign, vincit, I conquer, Christian cross. So very much. In fact, they're very disappointed. They thought they were going to find Christians in India, and they thought the Hindu temples were some form of Christian religion, but they soon got disillusioned about that. Nevertheless, so the other thing I did want to show you, just so fill in the thing, is a little map in this book that I bought along. Show you, and we sort of somehow get that, put something down there. This is the outward journey of Vasco da Gama.
Wow.
See that great leap of faith instead of going right into the Bay of Guinea, he took it, but he turned too soon. he didn't go far enough south, so he had to hop down the wrong side of Africa, if you like, before he went up the right side. And he went to all sorts of places. And the further he got up, the more he was given confidence, because he found Arabic speakers there, and they could speak Arabic. And then that, once again, that great leap of faith with the monsoon winds right across the Indian Ocean to India. But what a exploration that was.
Why didn't he follow the coast? Why didn't he follow the coast?
Why didn't he?
Then down, he's gone right out to the Atlantic, yes.
Because it was just too difficult to go down. The winds would keep on blowing it ashore, and they reckon it was too perilous to do it. You had to be out to sea to do it properly, but out to sea, where were you? Now, just one thing before
And
I
they
stop
went to
you.
Brazil.
Yeah, just a
That
couple of
far
years
out.
after Vasco da Gama's trip, and they had another trip, even bigger. They had about 6 ships in this one, by a guy called Cabral. His name is it full name? Pedro Alvarez Cabral, I think. He did a similar trip, but he even thought, oh well, because Vasco da Gama turned too early, he'll take an even wider sweep. And what the heck did he do? He bumped into Brazil. So he's acknowledged in 1500 as the discoverer of Brazil. And he still went on from there, didn't do much with it, just went on and went to India and followed the rest of the route there. But
Well, they all talk Portuguese.
anyway, look, there's some other coins I haven't shown you. I don't know if I need to really. I think that's a good sampling of them. But let me tell you this: it's not easy to buy such coins. The Portuguese, they actually like to. Well, first of all, they're avid collectors. Portuguese do their own history and their own coins, and they. Sorry, you got the other ones, haven't you? Yeah. And they
Other ones
they
being
bid them up
photographed.
high. If I try to bid in a Portuguese auction online, I've got to pay quite reasonable prices to get them. So I don't own anything real valuable. For instance, that Cruzado I showed you of John, his successor, I don't have a Cruzado of Manuel, but Manuel also, as well as Cruzados, he minted 10 Cruzado coins, great big gold coins like this, and that'd be 35 grams, so basically more than a troy ounce of gold. You've got to pay about 60,000 euros in an auction to get one of those. So you see, I don't have one. Oh, and the other thing I meant to say about Cruzados, if you don't mind me just finishing this one, what did Vasco da Gama and his brother, each commanding these 2 big ships, get paid for his services? 2,000 Cruzados each. That was a lot of money, okay? 2,000 of those gold coins. That was their fee, apart from whatever else they could extort from the natives. So yeah, those are probably enough. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
That linkage you were talking about earlier between
Right.
the royal family in Portugal with the English woman who got
Yeah.
married to Canada. Was that tantamount to the sort of the linkage between Britain and Portugal being the longest?
That's
serving
absolutely
sort of
right. The treaty,
allies?
you're absolutely right. That's when they signed the Treaty of Windsor. You're right, which established forever, perpetual love, if you like, between England and Portugal, because of the family relationship. So, as I say, they were cousins, first cousins with Henry V of England, and Philippa unfortunately died that year. She died before John, her husband, in 1415. And those that her children are still called by the Portuguese the illustrious generation, because of their achievements, and especially Henry the Navigator in getting all this going, and his achievements. But you're right, it established that link, and so many times Portugal was pressed to, especially in the Second World War and so on, and they became a neutral and were a good friend to England in those days. That all stems from that Treaty of Windsor. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, right. Right, I've only got recent acquisitions. My recent acquisition is this Australian Paralympic bimetallic coin that the the Royal Australian Mint has put out recently. I wrote to the Mint because I saw it advertised, and I wanted to double check it was really bimetallic, because so often they say bimetallic coin, but they mean bicoloured. You know, it's copper with a silver plate or whatever. So I emailed the Mint and said, now, is it bimetallic? Is it 2 parts, not 1, plated? And they came back and said, yes, it's 2 parts, separate parts, and this one is put out, it was actually put out in 2020, last year, for the Paralympics, which never happened. But they're going now. So after I got that information, I tried to get one. I emailed Joe Detling and said, you know, you have one advertised in your monthly magazine, and what next? Are there any? And he laughed and he said, you know, there's only 500 of them and we only got a very small allocation. So I said, oh, well, if you ever get any, you know, let me know. So when the Mint answered, I wrote back and said, thank you very much. Now to find one. And lo and behold, 10 minutes after I sent that, I got a phone call from the Mint shop saying, oh, you know, I believe you're after one of these. And I said, yes. And they said, well, it just so happens we had a couple returned. They were returned. So I said, would you like one? I said, yes, please. Joe was actually selling them at Wynyard Coins for $350. The Mint was selling them at $325, so I said, that's even better. So they put one aside for me, and while they were sending me that, because it's $300 worth, I got this $2 that they were putting out as well, the indigenous defending the country. Again, these $2 coins are getting pretty hard to get. The cards are available, but again, there's not many of those, and you know that you can run out of them pretty quickly. But you never see the ones in circulation.
The ones with the card has actually got the C Mint mark.
Yeah.
And whereas the circulating ones don't have the C
C mark. But you never see them anymore. You know, it's not as if they turn up in circulation. And
you generally find that they won't turn up in circulation for about another 6 or 8 months.
yeah. So I was very happy to add that to my bimetallic collection. And that's all I brought.
Thanks, Rod. We haven't missed anyone? No? Well, I'll just finish up with our famous explorer, James Cook. We would have seen this one before. It was in the auction from last month.
The New Zealand one.
I purchased it mainly because of the bimetallic 50-cent coin. But you know, you talk about explorers, and you know, in this particular little card, it's quite well presented because it gives you a bit of a history on what James Cook's all about in the HMS Endeavour. So I suppose without the ship, we don't have an explorer. so the ship takes pride of place on the coin, the 50-cent coin.
Nice in the bimetallic to the...
It's a bimetallic coin, of course, yes.
It's the only year they put out the bimetallic.
What year was that?
94.
And it's broken, by the way. Somebody sold me a dud. They say about the HMS Endeavour, a better ship for such service I never would wish for. These were Captain James. So, well, again, some people debate the fact that he wasn't a captain. He was
But he became captain. He wasn't.
James Cook's words when he took command of HMS Endeavour on the 27th of May 1768. Previously the Earl of Pembroke, a 360-ton coastal collier, the ship was renamed Endeavour after her transfer to the Navy. She was to become the earliest ship used for discovery for which accurate records are known. Following 2 months of preparation, including the fitting of an extra deck in her cargo hold, she set sail for Tahiti and Captain Cook's first voyage of discovery. It was during this journey that Cook spent 6 months charting and mapping the coastline of New Zealand. In April 1770, Endeavour narrowly avoided shipwreck on the Great Barrier Reef. Once repairs were carried out, she set sail for home and reached England on 10th of July 1771. I started thinking about this particular coin set, which was 1994 coin set. So that would basically make that coin set commemorative for the 225th anniversary of Cook's voyages, especially around New Zealand, because he spent a fair bit of time in New Zealand in 1769. So that's why you have to you got to take 1 year off for the New Zealanders. So that's basically what it's all about with the Endeavour and Captain James Cook.
They
Yes.
also put out a gold one of those,
Yeah.
but it's white gold and gold. I've got one, but being gold and they're pretty big size, it wasn't cheap.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the explorer, James Cook. Thank you all for coming, and yeah, it was quite interesting. All the different explorers that we spoke about. Yeah, I'm quite interested in the Portuguese stuff because being to Portugal a couple of years ago, I can just imagine what you were talking about. So it was quite good. So yeah, all right. Tony's getting the refreshments ready. We'll call a night for the meeting, and we'll have refreshments. And thank you for all coming. And we'll see you at the Coffs Harbour convention. Maybe 1 year we'll see you at the convention.
He was at the first one, so you better make sure you're at the last one.
All right.
So what's your talk?
I sort of figured I'll talk about tokens.
Okay, so you can email me what the title is?
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to do that on the weekend. And yes, if you email me that stuff that you wanted, I'll put it on the computer. You wanted to put something on my computer.
Yeah,
So I can do that too.
yeah. It was actually photocopies of a display I gave at Philas at the big fair that they had on signature combinations and Australian banknotes. And I was. They called it the Stamp and Coin Fair, but there weren't many coins. And because we were putting in the frames, I was thinking, okay, it's hard to show coins like that, but I could show banknotes, so I put that out.
That's very good. Yeah.
And I've got them, I put the effort to make it on all the signature combinations on our Australian decimal paper notes. It's quite a nice presentation. I think they had 16 pages, and I actually have 17 pages because there's one more page after.